What if I told you that one of the biggest dangers in medieval life wasn't war, but going to the bathroom? Yes, history isn't just about kings, queens, and battles. It's also about butts, bacteria, and a whole lot of bad smells. Forget your scented toilet paper and flush buttons. Imagine being deep in a castle surrounded by cold stone walls or in the middle of a muddy field with nature as your only option, and then nature calls. How did people wipe before toilet paper existed? What did they do after the dirty deed was done? Today we dive into one of the most unspoken, uncomfortable, and absolutely fascinating parts of the Middle Ages. How did people clean themselves after pooping? So, grab your toilet paper, hold your nose, hit that like button, and let's get into it. In the Middle Ages, the idea of a cozy private bathroom didn't exist. Forget lavender candles or running water. This was survival-level hygiene. First off, bathrooms, no such thing. The Latin word lavatrina once meant a place to wash. But in medieval Europe, washing was rare, and clean was a myth. For nobles, castles had guard robes, tiny rooms sticking out of stone walls with holes in the floor. Your waist dropped straight down, often into a moat or pit filled with who knows what. Imagine the stench rising back up through the hole in winter. In towns like London and Paris, they tried septic pits by the late Middle Ages, but no one wanted to clean them. That job went to gone farmers. Men who climbed down into pits full of human waste. Many died from the fumes. Others caught deadly infections. Their job was so dangerous they were forced to work at night when fewer people would see or smell them. Peasants, meanwhile, did their business wherever they could, behind trees, in fields, or even in stables. Some villages had communal latrines, but without plumbing. Waste piled up fast. The result? Infections spread like wildfire. Kids were especially vulnerable with open wounds and no access to clean water. But the horror didn't end when the poop hit the ground. Now came the real test. How do you wipe without toilet paper? Let's be honest, no one back then had it easy. And when it came to cleaning up, they got very creative. Peasants used whatever was nearby. Straw, hay, dry grass leaves carefully chosen because the wrong one could leave you itching for days. Moss, soft, green, absorbent, and surprisingly popular in forest areas. But sometimes they had nothing. So they used their bare left hand and washed it afterward if water was available. This is why even today in some cultures the left hand is considered unclean for greetings or meals. In coastal towns, sailors and fishermen reached for seashells. Yes, actual shells. Imagine scraping your sensitive bits with a jagged clam. One wrong move and your day was ruined. In dry regions with no greenery, people turned to smooth sticks or even broken pottery shards. These required surgical-level precision, or else you'd end up with cuts in places you really don't want cuts. Meanwhile, the rich and powerful had options. Monks and nobles used reusable linen cloths which were washed and used again. Perfumed herbs were often packed inside clothing to cover up lingering smells because full-body baths rare. Very rare. Still, the king's bottom smelled just as bad as the peasants'. No amount of perfume could completely mask the truth. Believe it or not, the ancient Romans were way ahead of the game. They used a taurium, a sponge tied to a stick dipped in salt water or vinegar. Sounds civilized. Here's the nightmare. It was shared. One sponge used by everyone in the public toilet. Just rinse, swish, and pass it on. After the fall of the Roman Empire, that relatively advanced system disappeared, and what followed in medieval Europe was, well, a step backwards into filth. For the poorest of the poor, even moss or straw could be a luxury. Some walked miles just to find water to wash. In the dead of winter, they sometimes used snow. Yes, actual snow to clean themselves. Cold, painful, and often leading to skin cracks and infections. If there were no rivers nearby or if the water was full of waste, people had no option but to stay dirty. That filth brought consequences. Dysentery, cholera, and worms spread like wildfire. During the Black Death, doctors believed dirt protected the body, so they advised not to bathe at all. Towns and cities stank of death and rot. People carried small cloth pouches of herbs to block out the smell or their own odor. In some churches, if you stank too much, you could be banned from attending services. Even taverns refused the worst-smelling patrons. Some latrines, especially in inns and cities, had deep waste pits. These produced methane, a flammable gas. If someone lit a candle nearby, boom. There are actual records of medieval bathrooms exploding. Yes, you could die from a poop-related detonation. Toilet paper isn't as ancient as you might think. It was invented in the 14th century China, but in Europe, they didn't see the point. By the 1400s, the French elite used soft perfumed cloths. The Germans and English still stuck to moss and hay. In monasteries, monks reused cloths just like the Romans. But many believed that touching filth made the body stronger, so they didn't try too hard to stay clean. Then came the invention of printed books. By the 1500s, people started using old manuscripts and pamphlets as toilet paper. That's right. Shakespeare could have ended up in a latrine. Not until the 1800s did toilet paper rolls appear in stores, and most people thought it was a waste of money. Why buy paper when you could just grab a newspaper or a corn cob? Only in the 20th century did toilet paper become common, ending a long, smelly chapter of human history. Long before toilet paper was invented, the early Muslims had already developed a highly advanced hygiene system. And no, they weren't using leaves or rocks like in Europe. They were using water. Why? Because Islam isn't just a religion of prayer. It's a religion of purity. According to Islamic teachings, personal hygiene is not optional. It's a divine obligation. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized tahara or cleanliness as half of faith. That's not poetic language. That's daily practice. So when a Muslim goes to the toilet, the process doesn't end with wiping. It's followed by the cleansing of the private parts with water. It's not just a cultural habit. It's a religious act, a way of staying physically clean and spiritually pure for prayer, which happens 5 times a day. And guess what? This wasn't just spiritual. It was scientific. While medieval Europe dumped chamber pots into the streets and rarely bathed, Islamic civilizations in Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba built public bathhouses, advanced sewage systems, and emphasized washing hands, face, and body multiple times a day. All of it was rooted in Islamic hygiene laws centuries ahead of their time. Even today, many Muslims continue this tradition, not because they reject toilet paper, but because water cleans better. It's more hygienic. In fact, bidets and hand showers are a common sight in Muslim homes around the world, from Jakarta to Istanbul. And ironically, modern science is finally catching up. Doctors now say washing with water is cleaner, healthier, and gentler than wiping with dry paper alone. So, next time you hear someone ask, "Why don't Muslims use toilet paper?" tell them the truth. They were just ahead of everyone else. Public latrines in the Middle Ages weren't private at all. Imagine sitting down to do your business while someone next to you is having a full conversation. Wooden benches with holes lined up like choir seats. No walls, no shame. So, fellow time travelers, what have we learned? That wiping your butt was once a life-threatening challenge. That what we now take for granted, a simple roll of paper, was once a luxury, and before that, an impossible dream. From moss in the forest to sticks and snow to exploding latrines and medieval perfumes, hygiene in history was anything but clean.